Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Your Green Business Virtual Speaker Series with Brett Tackaberry from Rebel.com. For those of you who don't know us, EnviroCenter is a nonprofit environmental organization based here in Ottawa. Our core mission supports sustainable lifestyles, which means that we encourage people to take action on climate in their own lives, in their homes, their workplaces and businesses, their communities, and right here in our city. By pointing folks toward practical ways to reduce their environmental impact, we help them make lasting, positive change. Our work focuses on 4 key areas: green homes, green transportation, green lifestyle, and green business. And of course, today we're here to talk about green business. EnviroCenter's Your Green Business programs support businesses and other workplace organizations in working together to achieve our collective sustainability goals. The Your Green Business Hub in Ottawa, also known as Carbon 613, helps local businesses achieve their sustainability goals by sharing knowledge, resources, and tools for tracking greenhouse gas emissions and setting a reduction target. The Carbon 613 Your Green Business Hub is part of a national network of Green Economy Canada hubs with more than 275 member businesses across Ontario and new hubs and partner programs across the country. We can tap into broad support without losing our local focus. Our virtual speaker and tour series will host a fresh guest each month and cover a variety of topics related to business sustainability. For more info, you can visit www.yourgreenbusiness.ca, and to stay up to date, please sign up for our newsletter there, and we'll also be posting a link in the chat. A few quick logistical notes before I introduce today's speaker. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be shared online after the event for those who couldn't attend. Please keep yourself muted during the presentation portion so that everyone is able to hear Brett while he's speaking. And we'll be monitoring for questions in the chat box. So if you have something burning a hole in your brain, please type it there and we'll bring it forward to Brett at the end for our Q&A period. And we may be able to open up the floor to live questions as well. So a little bit of info about our presenter today. Brett is a digital solutions professional who continues to aim to make change in the world by helping people contribute online. Brett is CTO at Rebel.com, a hosting company and domain registrar, where he's responsible for the technical team and product direction. In his mission to help people be great online, Brett assists in running Tech for Good, Random Hacks of Kindness, and is an active participant in Civic Tech Ottawa and Code for Canada. Once again, welcome to everyone here in our audience, and welcome to Brett. Thank you, and you have the digital floor.
Thanks, Evan. All right, we're going to jump right into this, folks. So let me just share my screen and get going. All right. Cool, are we good to go? All right, I'll take that. Take no signal as yes. Cool. All right. So I'm Brett Tackaberry. Again, thanks for having me here. So I've been in the digital business now for, what can be measured in decades, couple at that. And along the way, I've found that, we can use technology to do good. And one of the things that, we can use it for is to help, fight against the climate crisis. And anyway, so I'm going to give you some tips today on how to do that. But I work at Rebel.com. I'm a CTO there. We sell domain names and websites and hosting, everything that small businesses need to do business online. And we have great support staff that can help you or companies across Canada to get online and make the most of the internet. Okay, so it's quite the title, but I'm going to talk about 7 things you can do with digital and technology parts of your organization to lighten your environmental impact. And so you're going to see it's fairly tangible stuff, things that you can touch and change and, action, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. But I'm going to go, I have a lot to go through, so I'm going to go through it quickly. I don't mind taking questions throughout, but definitely we can talk about it afterwards. Talk about it after the presentation and follow up for sure. Afterwards, I'll have links and the link to the presentation at the end of the slide. So what I'm not going to talk about, this isn't about the technology inside the building or an on-site premise. It's not about office heating or electricity or anything like that. We're not talking about how to green your office space. Really, it's not about transportation to work. It's not about remote working. And there's a great link by my friend Mike Gifford of Open Concept here in Ottawa, and he has an article, a couple articles on the EnviroCenter website that deal with, remote working and that. So I'll leave that to him. Those articles are great. But I'm going to talk about digital things and websites and emails, and I'll talk about email first. Okay, so email is actually really quite wasteful. For every email that gets sent, it's scanned for viruses, stored forever, stored across all your devices. So every time you get an email, it gets downloaded and stored and saved, and you have to power those devices. But not only that, it's stored in the cloud somewhere, and it's taking up energy. And hope it's not printed. I mean, I think we're past printing emails, but nonetheless, takes up a lot of power. I'm going to go through that a little bit more, of course, but this all gets compounded when we talk about spam and newsletters and auto replies. So the average email, a standard email is about 4 grams of carbon dioxide emission. Spam is a little bit less. Those emails with tons of reply all thread and attachments, it's almost 50 grams. And you can imagine it adds up pretty quickly. So let's just focus on those unnecessary emails, all those thank yous and okay, got it. Those emails, if you assume each one is about, say, 1 gram of carbon dioxide emission, multiply that by the 30 million people that are maybe sending emails on a daily basis, you look at 40 tons of carbon emissions per day in Canada, just in Canada. And so, multiply that around the world every day, and it adds up really quickly. And so what we want to do here is, reduce that real sort of dependence on those emails, or rather be thoughtful about when we send emails. So let's, what you can do right away here is only copy the people that are needed. You don't need to forward, you don't need to forward to 1 million people, just remove them. Clean your email list. So those mailing lists, if you're running, MailChimp or whichever, review that mail list often to remove those emails that, are either bouncing or, aren't getting actioned. Unsubscribe yourself from emails. We can avoid attachments by linking to files instead of documents. And then, move away from email, altogether, especially maybe internally, at least. Those like Slack and all that take up a lot less energy to use on a daily basis, and you don't have to be cycling through these emails that are maybe just chats anyways. So email's your first step. Email's easy to change. Email's something that you can probably change without going all the way up and down the ladder of authority and making big changes, making big sort of behavioral changes, but some small things to get started. Okay, so email's the first one. Like I said, I'm going to go through 7 things. That's the easiest one. So this next one, data tracking. So every time when you're on the web, all the interactions with websites, little sort of pings and notices, when you get notifications, it all takes, there's power usage for all of it. There's electricity usage for all of them, and with electricity comes emissions. And in particular with data tracking, whether or not you know it, when you go to some, a lot of these e-commerce sites, when you go to any, the Amazons and, when you do your shopping, they're tracking your usage, right? And so the first thing you can do here is stop this tracking. So actually by getting those ad blockers, you're doing yourself a favor, but what you're also doing is you're not sending that information, that constant flow of information back to these, tracking sites. Now it's, they'll tell you that they use it to make your experience better, but really they're just trying, what they're trying to do is to connect the dots for the advertising and see how using the site. But anyways, it's from your point of view, if you block it, it protects your private information, but it's also doing quite a service to reduce emissions and the sort of that tracking. If you get something, I use Bitdefender anti-tracking, and what I see as I go to these sites is I see all the trackers that are being blocked. And so, for Lowe's.ca, for example, has 6 different trackers on it, and it's reporting back to its advertising, analytics, social media trackers, and that's my personal information that it's sending. But also for every hit that it's doing it takes electricity, right? So another easy win is to add a tracking ad blocker, and like I said, I use Bitdefender one for Mac, but there's a lot out there. You can turn in Firefox and Chrome. There's usually settings under sort of content and privacy where you can turn on ad blocking. And what that's going to do is that's going to stop that content from downloading, and it's going to reduce that sort of constant flow of information, all those pings as you move around the site, and so all those will reduce that traffic. Okay, so next is your website. So the internet consumes 1 million megawatt hours of electricity per day, and all that electricity in turn produces carbon emissions. And so that usually the researchers, the studies they look at from data-centered networks of devices, and what we're going to talk about today is what you can do to your website to reduce the amount of electricity that it would consume for your that your users consume by using it. So some things you can do to make your website green. So again, coming back to it, it's the name of the game is about making the payload or the download size for your website smaller. And so it's pretty easy to it's pretty easy to upload an image and put it on the website, but really what you want to do is you want to you can resize your images to be a lot smaller and compact again, which makes it easier to download and quicker to download. And I have a link in the next slide that, with a tool that you can use. Reducing the size of JavaScript files and CSS files too also, again, reduces that total load of your website. And the other part of making your sort of website green is the computation that goes into creating websites. So if you're using something like WordPress, it's using PHP in the background, and it kind of crafts the website when you go to it. So the server's running, and typically you don't see any effect of this. You just go to a web page and you get content. But behind the scenes, it's calculating what you should see based on which page you're on. And so by using caching tools, it's pre-calculates it so that 10 people go to the site, it only calculates it once. If 1,000 people go to the site, you don't have to recalculate, recompute that page every time. And so all these 3 things are fairly easy to implement, and they have a huge impact on the overall sort of weight of the site. And so what you can do is compress your images before you upload them. Tiny PNGs at a really easy to use site where you just upload your PNGs. They give you back new ones that are 75% compressed. And then if you just upload them like that, it just means it's going to be a smaller sort of overall website. And then if you're using something like WordPress, you can use a plugin called W3 Cache. And it does a lot of this for you. It doesn't necessarily do all the PNG compression, but it will make your JavaScript smaller, make your CSS smaller, and it will pre-compute all your pages so that whenever a new person comes to it, they get a super fast website and super fast response. And that's the name of the game. But it's not only like it's not only for the environmental impact. It's a win-win-win situation. Improving the speed, is better for the environment. It's also better for SEO. It's better for accessibility, and it's better for conversions. So this isn't, you're going to have wins across the board by putting a little bit of time into making your website run faster and smoother. Let's measure it. Let's take a couple seconds. So the average website produces about 6.8 grams carbon per page view. The Elon Musk Foundation website takes 0.009 grams. And this is a legit site. The site is just text. There's no additional downloads, and it is probably the lightest website on the internet. So compared to, say more average site, and I'll show you one in a second. But anyways, this website, if it gets measured, it gets worked on. Go to websitecarbon.com and put in your URL, and you'll see how well you do. So what it's going to look at, it's going to look at where it's hosted. I'll come back to that in a couple minutes. But it's going to look at also, it's going to calculate the overall payload or the weight of the site. And so I put in random hacks of kindness, rhok.ca through here, and it's cleaner than 62% of web pages tested, and producing 0.65 grams of CO2. And it's running on sustainable energy, which we'll talk about in a minute. But this, it will tell you whether it needs work or not. And if it does, it has, there's a few tips there too, but there's lots of information on the site, on the internet, to how to make your website perform better. There's also great books. A Book Apart published is it's a publisher that has great web design books to talk a lot about UX and accessibility, and but also they have a book in the series called Sustainable Web Design, and something like this would touch on all the little pieces throughout the sort of chain of launching a website that would help you make it more performant. I also have a few links here to including websitecarbon.com that will you can have a look at after the presentation. I'm going to send these slides around. All right, so the next piece of the puzzle, the link in the chain, is where it's hosted and the networks it runs on. So you can imagine, so your website is being hosted in somewhere in the internet. It's on the cloud. It's likely no longer in a server in the closet or in the basement of your office. It's probably in the cloud. It's probably in a hosting company. Maybe you don't know exactly where it exists. Really, it's important. I'll tell you why in a second, but it's out there. And these data centers pull their energy from the grid where they exist. And I won't get into all the details, but that grid usually has a mix of power going into it, and a hosting company can be green depending on how they buy their power. Now, so green hosting, at least is a concept that will that that if you're hosting there, that they're contributing back to the environment, and it's likely going to produce less emissions if you go somewhere else. But so green hosting, it's comprised of three things. So it's comprised of infrastructure, efficiency, and the source of electricity. So the good thing to know is that you don't have to worry too much about the infrastructure or the efficiency of these hosting companies or the data centers, because that's what they do best. They are the best in the world at making their data centers efficient. They're the best of in the world at building this infrastructure. So you can assume that the Microsofts, the Googles, IBMs, AWS have fantastic infrastructure and efficiency in running their data centers. In fact, they invest a lot of money into making sure that they're using as little power to run what they have, and they maintain really great efficiency. So, name of the game is, where is electricity coming from? And so, like I said, the different data centers can purchase different proportions of electricity, and they really do invest in their side projects of power generation. Like you'll see in the news, there's always lots of press releases, and I mean, at least in the news that I read, and press releases about AWS launching this solar wind initiative, or this solar initiative, or this wind initiative, and they usually attach them or build them onto the sites of their data centers, and it produces some electricity for those data centers. But nonetheless, they're still buying and pulling energy from the grid, and depending where they exist, they're pulling. You have to really understand the proportion of renewable energy versus non-renewable, and also carbon emitting energy production. So, so while that is a fairly messy story, I'm going to make it easy for you. So the great thing about us is that we live close to Quebec, and Quebec has 99% renewable energy. So any data centers in Quebec are likely to are automatically green, in a way that they're using 99% renewable energy, and it's a safe bet that any of the sort of big players are running really great data centers in those areas. Amazon, Google, IBM, Microsoft, they are all in Montreal. There's a few other data centers in Drummondville or Quebec City, and any of those suppliers, it's going to be running on green energy. So now, running in those sort of in the cloud isn't easy for a small business or some folks without the tech department. So other companies can sort of make that easier for you. But what I'm getting at, though, is that if you want to know where sort of who's a green host or not, you have to look at the power that they run on. And so, and if it boils down to being something in Montreal, then it's a pretty good bet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that vicinity of your data to your users and how that affects performance. But Montreal's a pretty good bet. And the plug here, the one and only plug. So hosting at rebel.com, we have servers in Montreal, and would be more than happy to help you migrate onto them, because our servers are green servers, because they run on renewable energy. So anyways, also I'm very liberal with discounts. My CEO is on this call, that's fine. I'm sure it's okay. Just reach out to me afterwards, and I'm happy to help you move to Rebel. Anyways, okay, but the reality is the cloud is more energy efficient. It's very unlikely that you're still running on premise servers, or maybe you are. Nonetheless, migrate to the cloud. Even those, some of your internal servers, applications, it's like I said, it's going to be much more efficient in the cloud. They put a lot of effort into understanding usage percentages, and they can automatically scale up and scale down energy usage depending on what's needed. Not only that, they put a lot of effort into cooling infrastructure and other kinds of technology that helps improve efficiency. But I won't go too deep into that. And then the cloud also unlocks other technologies that can help you be a little bit more energy conscious. Serverless, which is a technology that allows you to just run your apps when you need them on demand. Automation and scaling. Perhaps you need something to go perhaps it's more efficient for a whole application to go off in the middle of the night when no one's using it. So those things help energy, but you know what? When you're buying from a cloud, you're really buying electricity through them anyways. So it's also going to reduce your costs too. So the other piece of the puzzle in terms of of increasing performance, increasing the decreasing the energy used is to use a content distribution network, a CDN. CDNs, what they do is they bring your content to closer to where your users are. So if you have a user in British Columbia, instead of them going to Montreal to get your website, they might just go to Calgary or Edmonton or Vancouver to get the content they need. And then in the background, there's technology that synchronizes content around all these areas. And so it certainly makes a difference across Canada and around the world. And it's, again, back to, what increases conversions and increases SEO. It's the speed of response, and the CDN definitely helps that speed of response. Not only that, it's these CDNs are made to respond quickly, are made to do it efficiently, and so it really helps you get a super fast website. And so there are suppliers like Cloudflare or StackPath, which plug in really nicely to WordPress if you're using WordPress. It's common for smaller businesses, of course. So so it's not impossible to, even for a non-technical user, to use a CDN, and it will help tremendously on the speed. And again, that relates to energy usage of your site. Okay, cool. I'm gonna switch gears just a little bit away from your website for a second here, away from the internet. I wanted to fit this slide in somewhere. It's number 5, e-waste. Okay, so I'm gonna make a transition. So the transition is, so remember I told you to get those servers out of that closet in your office or the basement in your office. Well, when you're gonna get rid of it, you don't want to just throw it in the landfill. Of course, you can, there are, electrical recyclers out there for sure, but one particular organization I want to highlight is CompuCore. They're in town, and there's others like it across the country, of course, but they'll do really smart, maybe reuse or recycling or refurbishing of that old technology. Not only that, if you're bringing in laptops or old servers, they also have methods to destroy data and give you certificates for it. And if that technology is reusable in some form, then they'll provide a donation receipt for it. And so, I mean, that's your first step to getting rid of that old technology, that old waste. Maybe it goes in the hands of, gets back into useful hands. Because you don't want it to end up in landfill. There are a lot of chemicals in electronics, and they seep into our soils and our water, and they fill up landfill. So let's stay away from just throwing it out, because you can also just drop it off at Best Buy and Staples, where they have these electronics recovery programs, and then from there they go to the scrap yards. But in the scrap yards, they'll actually break down electronics pieces into components and then separate metals, so that they each get dealt with separately and perhaps actually recycled. So definitely, try to do that as much as you can. It's a small extra effort. Okay, so your work habits. What can we do? What can you do? So turn off your computers at night. I mean, these next 4 or 5 things aren't going to be big surprises, but we forget, either for convenience or just for the fact that it's just really easy to slide into work in the morning, to turn on your computer by just typing your password. Turn off your computer at night. It stops that drain of electricity. Turn off the power bars. and and so it stops that drain of power to the monitor too. You can lower the brightness on your monitors. That also helps the eyesight too, and helps eye strain, but it saves a lot of electricity. I mentioned anti-tracking software. So that's something that you can do today, tomorrow. Turn off that, turn on put in an ad blocker or some sort of content blocker. And then, if you wanted to be a little bit more active in it, there's a search engine called Ecosia, and it's hard to tell the difference between Google and all that. Of course, it's not fully integrated with all your other accounts, but Ecosia, search engine that will fund tree planting from the profit it makes through online searches. So there are little ways like that you can sort of do what you're going to do anyways, but have a little bit of an impact while you do it. And that's what this all is, right? These are all these little things that I'm asking you to change that will have an aggregate effect when everyone does them, when you do them across a whole organization. But they're really quite small. And I'll come back to that sort of conclusion right after I tell you how to sort of get involved. So if this is inspiring a little bit, if you think that you can have a bit of a change, there are others in the space that are doing this too. And so climateaction.tech is a community of practice of tech workers, and it's a group where you can go and talk about these issues and talk about the little things you can do within your organization. And so you see people from and peers from around the city and Canada in tech companies around the world, and talk about what we can all do and sharing ideas. And so a couple small things. And so this is a great group, Slack. There's a Slack group. It's a great group where you can go and just listen. Go and see what other people are doing. There's lots of researchers on board, and they'll present the facts. But there's also folks like myself that not necessarily an activist or but just someone that can use a little bit of control, a little bit of influence I have in the company I work to make a little bit of change. And it's really a group of other folks like that. But there's lots of great information too. Their Climate Action Tech TEDx series is about 10 videos, all little ideas, all concepts that you can take and adopt inside your organization. All really usable stuff and actionable ideas. They also run some campaigns. So back in 2019, if you remember the global climate strike, on one of the days they had a digital climate strike, and thousands of companies signed on to turn off their e-commerce for a day or morning, and you might remember some have fully black site too, and turned off site where sort of the lights are off, can't do anything. And that was the digital participation of the global climate strike. In Feb, they ran Let's Green the Web, reduce was a campaign around that. Can you still, folks, am I still online? Can I get a thumbs up?
Yeah, we lost you for a second, but we can hear you again now.
Okay, good. I'm not sure what happened. I just got a little message that I'm unstable. Okay, so yeah, so they run these campaigns too. So it's something that you could take back to the organization and say, hey, there's this little campaign. We can be a part of it and make a few changes at that time. Okay, so it's getting kind of to the end of what I want to talk about, but what I really want to hammer home is that you can own these changes. Like these are changes. The digital concepts that you can bring to your organization to make change aren't going to come from the top. These ones in particular are going to be done by all the folks that have a little bit of influence across the country within their organizations and their communities. And but the good thing is that you can do a lot of these changes. You, as far as the changes to the website, say your website designers or developers can likely implement these without a huge change in, a change in behavior or a huge corporate initiative or a huge company initiative, or without a huge amount of investment either. It's more these concepts that you can change sort of as you go. And you can probably start to bring them, a lot of them in starting tomorrow or next week. So they're easy wins. They have a huge impact, especially if everyone does them. So you got this, you can do it. And that's it for me. So you can reach me at these links. This presentation is online, and I think we'll be sending this out after the presentation.
I want to say thanks again to everybody for joining us today, listening to Brett, and Brett for sharing those insights. Thanks for coming by to learn some of the things you can bring back to your own workplaces. Keep pushing the envelope on business sustainability in Ottawa, across Canada, wherever you guys are. Don't forget, again, to sign up for the Your Green Business newsletter if you haven't done that already. It's the best way to stay informed and up to date and aware of upcoming speakers like Brett and other great Your Green Business events. Mandy has posted a link in the chat. So of course, you can also find us at envirocenter.ca and following that link. I want to thank Mandy as well for doing tech support while we've been on the call today. It's great to have her on, really smooths out the process and makes a nice experience for everyone. So thanks again to everyone. Have a fantastic afternoon, and we'll see you for the next event.